You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome back to another live edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast, part of the 90 Min Football Network. And as ever, I'm your host, Harry Symeou. On this edition of the show, we're going to be discussing the latest reports regarding Mikel Arteta's future. The report comes from Chris Wheatley. We're going to be diving into that report, and then we're going to be discussing it, as well as taking some of your questions and thoughts from the live chat box. We are going to be bringing you a separate show looking ahead to the game against Liverpool, in which we'll also be covering Mikel Arteta's pre-game press conference. So if you're wondering why I'm not focusing on the press conference that Mikel Arteta gave earlier today on this particular edition, it's because we're going to incorporate that into our Liverpool preview, which is coming up later today, live on the YouTube channel at 5 p.m. And it will be available in podcast format shortly after that. Right. Let's say a few hellos, because there are plenty of you with us in the live chat. There's been plenty of you with us in the chat for a little while now, which is fantastic. You've all been chatting away amongst yourselves, which is great. Let's say a big hello to We All Follow the Arsenal. Peeny Ween is here. So is Diogene. Sko is there too. Henry is in the chat box with us, as is Creambone, Simon, Steve, John, Saswat, another John, Avenite, Sam, Steve, Daniel, and Social DRG. Hope you guys are all good. Hope you guys are all well. Before we dive into the video, before we dive into this episode of the podcast, just a quick reminder to make sure that you've hit that like button on the video and subscribed to the channel if you are new. We are on the road towards 20,000 YouTube subscribers. We'd love to get there by the end of the season. And if we could manage that, we take the total subscribership across the video and audio platforms on the Chronicles of a Gooner to in excess of 35,000 people. 35,000. That is mad. I never thought when I started this thing that I'd get past 500. So to be here and to be working towards that next target is obviously amazing. And I thank you guys for your continued support. Okay, without further ado, let's get into the story. And the story is one that comes from Football London's Chris Wheatley, in which he says that Arsenal are confident Mikel Arteta will extend his Arsenal contract, which is, of course, currently due to expire in 2023. And that is amid interest from Paris Saint-Germain, who are said to be monitoring Mikel Arteta's situation. Now, let me share with you guys my take on this and my thoughts on this. And I'm not in any way seeking to discredit anything that another journalist or person in this field does. I think Chris Wheatley is brilliant. He has broken a lot of big stories over the last few years. I think he's right to say that Arsenal are confident that Mikel Arteta will sign a new contract. But I think the bit that's maybe missing from that is that I think Arsenal are close to agreeing that deal, as opposed to it just being a confidence that Mikel Arteta is happy to remain and happy to stay beyond the expiration date of his current contract. I believe that Mikel Arteta and Arsenal informally have discussed a new contract, and I believe that informally it's pretty much a done deal. I think that this deal is something that we don't really have to worry about. I think it's something that is definitely coming. The question is now around the timing of it. And I think for me, look, I'm pretty set now on the fact that I believe Mikel Arteta is the right man to continue taking this project forward. I think the progress we've seen, not just this season, but in the second half of last season as well. So if you take that whole, after Christmas in the 2020-21 campaign, and then, of course, the 21-22 campaign, if you take all of that into consideration, there has been considerable progress. During that time, we've overhauled the squad. We've overhauled the the team dramatically, and that has been a hard task, a task that Mikel Arteta's had to really focus on. And sometimes that instability with regards to players, his futures being unclear, and perhaps not being totally committed and totally in on the project, that's caused him problems, that's caused him issues. And we're now in a place where those players are gone, they've been moved on, they've been moved out the door, and Arsenal can now focus on the football side of things without having to worry too much at this moment in time anyway about off the field issues, about behind the scenes disagreements and all of that stuff. It feels like everybody's singing from the same hymn sheet. And now that the focus is on coaching and the focus is on preparing for Premier League fixtures, because of course we're not in Europe, we're not in any of the cup competitions, it means that you're now starting to see more of those coaching ideas with longer periods of time in between games, less games. You're starting to see more of those ideas coming off on a match day because of those factors, because we are able to spend time on the training ground focusing on particular fixtures. We've naturally, as you spend more time together as a group, the manager's ideas become clearer and start to come across more and then become habit in a lot of ways. And I think Arsenal are really benefiting now from seeing that, or benefiting now, sorry, I beg your pardon for mincing my words. What we're seeing now is the benefit of giving a manager time and giving him that autonomy to implement what it is he wants. Because when you do that over a period of time, as long as the ideas are the right ones and the strong ones, and you've got the right people on board, you will see progress. And football's become a very short-term game. We often look at runs of results that maybe consist over 2 or 3 fixtures, and immediately we're calling for people's heads. And that's not something that's exclusive to Arsenal fans. It's something that's indicative of the football space at the moment. You look at clubs like Watford, who just pull a trigger on a manager whenever they feel like it. You look at how many managers Tottenham have been through in recent years. You look at Manchester United and the things that have been going on there. You look at Chelsea, another example of a club who don't really give anybody time. But when you can't be the club that goes out and spends vast amounts of money every single summer, like, Arsenal spent big money last summer, and I think they'll spend money this summer on 1 or 2 positions, but I don't expect Arsenal to go and bring in 6 or 7 players again, because we can't. We all saw the financial results. We all made of them what we wanted, and we all kind of understood that it was indicative of the fact that the club has been struggling through the last couple of years, through the pandemic. And, we do criticize the owners a lot, and I still think that they've got a lot of faults, and I still think they've got a long way to go before they'll convince me and most others that they're definitely the right people to take Arsenal back to the very top. But the money is there, even when we know the money isn't there, if that makes sense. The money's been there to spend and invest, which suggests at the very least that they want this club to progress and move forward. So we've got to be, I think, quite positive about where we are now. And I think Mikel Arteta is obviously a large part of that, the biggest part of that. He's recruited well, and we know that he has a hand in recruitment. This is not the same structure that you see at some other clubs where he's very much a head coach and the recruitment is done by somebody else. Arteta came in as a head coach, has since been promoted to manager, and from what we know, works very, very closely with Edu in identifying players and then executing the transfer. So I think Mikel Arteta deserves a lot of credit. I think he deserves credit for being strong when players that we as fans had kind of taken into our hearts were not fulfilling what he asks, not living up to what they need to be, not training well, not performing well, not displaying the right values off of the pitch. When all of that was happening, Mikel Arteta will have at some point gone, particularly in Aubameyang's case, shit, can I actually afford to bomb this guy out? Can I actually afford to be without Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang? You look across the rest of that squad, Alexander Lacazette, as good as he is and as much as he gives us in other areas, isn't exactly prolific. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang hadn't been in recent times, but throughout the course of his Arsenal career, we've seen that he certainly can be. And we're seeing him be prolific again, having gone to Spain and having joined up with Barcelona. So the point I'm making here is that a lot of the decisions that Mikel Arteta's made have been bold and have been brave. And they've been brave because if he got them wrong, it would be his head on the line. So for me, there must have been some kind of guarantee given to Mikel Arteta for him to be so bold and to be so brave and not even think twice about some of these calls that he's made. There must have been some guarantee from the club's owners that he was going to get X amount of time and that he was going to be allowed to carry out what we call and what he calls the process. So that says to me that there is a lot of trust in Mikel Arteta from those at the top of the club. And as a manager, you know, yes, you want to go on and win things, but Mikel Arteta is very young in his managerial career. He will feel like if he stays at this football club for many years to come and continues working in this way and we continue moving and progressing in the right direction, that he can win things with this football club. This is a huge, huge football club. How often now in the modern day does a young budding manager get an opportunity at a massive football club who have the potential to go on and win, but also give him the keys to the car and say, you do it how you want to do it? It's such a rare thing in football now. I mean, you could go manage Manchester United, but you know that you're not going to be given the freedom that Mikel Arteta has at Arsenal. You could go manage Manchester City, and although Pep Guardiola is, of course, at the forefront and at the center of all the good work they've done, there are directors of football. There are other people in the Manchester City hierarchy who will have a say when it comes to signings, when it comes to moving people on, when it comes to all of those various different things. Mikel Arteta, as I say, is in the perfect environment. He's in an environment where there is pressure, of course. Arsenal is a huge club, and so there's always a pressure when you manage Arsenal Football Club. But because of the fact that we're not as wealthy as Manchester City, as Manchester United, as Chelsea have been in the past, you don't expect so much, which makes it easier for the manager. It means the level of expectation isn't quite as high as it might be at other clubs. But he's also got that ceiling with this football club. He can take this football club to a really high level because the infrastructure is there, the fan base is there, the stadium is there, the name is there. People still look at Arsenal as one of Europe's elite football clubs, even if when we've not been at that level just of late. But Mikel Arteta is on the right path to taking us back to that level. And he will feel like this is a job that is challenging, that he can go very far in. It's a job that's obviously close to his heart, given that he captained the club. He's got the London lifestyle. There is so much to like about this job. I don't see why Mikel Arteta at this point in his career would want to leave. He'd have to be presented with an opportunity to go and win now. And you only get that opportunity at a Manchester City. I would have said at a Chelsea. You know, Liverpool, I think a lot of what Liverpool are doing and what Liverpool have done in recent years has been down to Jurgen Klopp, more so than the structure of the club. You know, if you talk to Liverpool fans, a lot of them will tell you that FSG haven't always been as willing to invest as some of the fans would like. And I've heard rumblings and complaints about them. There's a view at Liverpool, based on the conversations I've had, that where they are today is largely because of Jurgen Klopp. So the number of clubs that Mikel Arteta could go to today and win with today are limited. You know, he's still not in Pep Guardiola territory. He's still not in Jurgen Klopp territory. He's got a hell of a long way to go. And what I really liked about his press conference today, and I know that we're going to talk about that in more detail on the Liverpool preview show, he kept saying that what we're doing now, I mean, it doesn't mean anything at this moment in time. We've not qualified for the Champions League yet. We've not done anything. We haven't achieved anything yet. It's all hot air. People kind of waxing lyrical about Arsenal now. You know, yeah, we're doing it because we're fans and we're enjoying what we see and we're all recognizing that there's progress there. But this is not the end. You know, there's a long, long way to go before we're going to get to where we want to be and where we feel that this club deserves to be. So I think for Mikel Arteta, this is a really good job. As I say, he's got the keys to the car. He's been given free rein. He's been given support, not just in bringing in players, but in moving players on as well. He's been allowed to implement a style. He's been allowed to do things his way. And have there been mistakes made along the way? Of course there have. But I think overall, he's done a very, very good job. The big question around this in my mind, so I'm pretty clear. I think Mikel Arteta deserves a new Arsenal contract. But the big question for me is, when should this happen? Now, as I said to you, I believe that talks have already happened. I believe that verbally there's probably already an agreement in place. I believe that Mikel Arteta has already expressed a desire to stay at the football club beyond the end of his current contract. But there are still a lot of Arsenal fans out there that are not convinced on Mikel Arteta. There are still a lot of Arsenal fans out there that were so vehemently against him. It's impossible for them to have done a 360 turn in the space of, 5-6 weeks. It's impossible. So there's a part of me that thinks that actually, yeah, maybe the deal has been done behind the scenes. Maybe the agreement is in place, but we shouldn't be announcing anything of this nature until at the very least this summer. And I put it in the poll because a lot of people have been discussing this since this story broke out from Chris Wheatley of football.london. And so the question I put in today's live chat poll was, would you offer Mikel Arteta a new contract? And the options are yes, no, absolutely not, and I'd like to assess in the summer. 80% of you say yes. 80% of you have seen enough this season to tell us that Mikel Arteta is taking us in the right direction. 17% of you still want to wait until the summer and assess what is going on and assess where we are and assess whether or not that feels like the right decision. And 3% of you say no, absolutely not. So there's still a few out there that don't feel that Mikel Arteta has done enough to justify a new contract and are not convinced that he's the man to take us forward. Now, what I would say is, in football, when you see big deals take place, i.e. contract extensions of a very high value, i.e. big money transfers, the likelihood of those discussions not having begun prior to our kind of knowledge of it is very unlikely. Something like this will be in the pipeline before it actually comes to fruition. A big transfer is often discussed informally, off record, before it actually gets to the point where it becomes, a done deal. So I think for me, to think that Arsenal would be putting things in place is not wrong. It's not bad. It's not poor management. In fact, it's good management to have something verbally at least in place going into the end of the season would be good. Listen, if the club want to go as far as signing on the dotted line without publicly announcing that, then I'm fine with it. But I don't think giving Mikel Arteta, let me rephrase that. I don't think announcing a new contract for Mikel Arteta before the end of the season is the right way to go. I don't think it's the right message to send. I think if he goes and achieves Champions League qualification, then there can't really be too many dissenting voices. There will be some, of course, there always is. But if you're sitting there at the end of the season watching Arsenal having finished in the top four, and you're then questioning whether he deserves a new contract, that you need to give your head a wobble, because what on earth more could you have expected this guy to do? I've maintained throughout the season that finishing in the top four is the absolute maximum that this Arsenal side could achieve, because we're not on Chelsea's level, we're not on Liverpool's level, and we're not on Manchester City's level. So to expect to finish above any of those sides is just completely unrealistic. To expect to get results against them in one-off games is at times is fair, because they're one-off games. But to ask a team to mirror up to the level of consistency shown by those three teams I've mentioned over the course of the season, a team that is still young, a team that is still developing, is just completely unrealistic. And there's this kind of fine balance to find, isn't there, between making sure that you're not allowing your standards to drop too far, but also being realistic about what is and isn't achievable. It's all good saying, let me keep my standards up here. We're Arsenal Football Club. Our standards should always be very, very high. But if that's simply impossible to achieve, then you're setting yourself up to fail. And who does that benefit? Holding people accountable to standards that are just impossible to achieve is not helpful or healthy in any way, shape, or form. So my view on it is, as I say, I think he deserves a new contract. I'm quite happy for him to continue on as manager for another couple of seasons, and we'll see where this takes us, because we've got some really brilliant young talents who Mikel Arteta is getting the absolute maximum out of, by the way. We've developed a system that clearly works. We're getting the best now out of Thomas Partey. We fixed the backline that has been a problem for Arsenal for many seasons. We've got a goalkeeper who could well and truly be our number one for the next 8-10 seasons, and nobody would bat an eyelid. We are moving in the right direction. There are a couple of positions that we need to fix. I still think we probably need another fullback. I still think that we might need another centre-back, just depending on the level that Saliba is when he comes back. I certainly think we need a striker, and that's why, we need to be patient still, because we're not quite at that final destination just yet. And then after that, if you're going to be competing in Europe and you're going to be challenging on multiple fronts, you need to then start to build out the squad a bit more. And that will be the next phase of this development, and that will be how Arsenal move forward. But so let me just summarize. I'm not saying that we should give him the contract today. If you want to discuss it behind the scenes, if the club and him want to do that, that's down to them. I think even if the deal is done and agreed before the end of the season, it shouldn't be announced until the summer. I just think things like that are unhelpful at this point in the season. But I am convinced that he deserves a new deal, and that we should be moving forward with this manager. A lot of people haven't been convinced by him. A lot of people still aren't convinced by him. A lot of people are flip-flopping at the moment because they can't be seen to be not enjoying what we're seeing at the moment, because it is that bloody good. But for me, I think he's done enough. I think he's shown enough progress. And if we finish in the top 4, then it wouldn't even be worth an argument. But I do think any announcement that is made with regards to Mikel Arteta's future is best off being held back until the summer. The other part that Chris Wheatley talked about in his report was that Paris Saint-Germain are said to be monitoring Mikel Arteta's current situation. Now, Paris Saint-Germain currently with Maurizio Pochettino in charge, having just been knocked out of the Champions League, which is at the kind of center of their world at the moment, isn't it, in terms of what they want and are expected to achieve. Pochettino looks as though he won't be in Paris next season. Looks as though he could be headed back to the Premier League. He could quite easily end up as the new Manchester United boss. He could even return to Tottenham if Antonio Conte decides he's not getting the backing he feels he needs from Daniel Levy and co. But PSG, I don't think that's a job that appeals to Mikel Arteta, in my opinion. Will the finances be great? I'm sure they will be. Will the possibilities be great in terms of what you can go out and buy and sign? Yeah, of course. But for me, it's a league that isn't particularly challenging. And that is something that devalues the Paris Saint-Germain proposition, because it becomes all about the Champions League, one cup competition in which you can easily have one off night and be dumped out, where you're playing against Europe's elite, which kind of cancels out the fact that you're so elite in France. I just think that PSG is a problem. It is a club where the culture is broken. It's a club where the culture is struggling. And I'm not sure that Mikel Arteta will have the stomach to go into another job straight away where he has to do so much lifting behind the scenes to get the team to where he wants to be. And at Arsenal, the club were willing to give him the time, and they were willing to be patient with him. They certainly won't be willing to do that at Paris Saint-Germain. Results will be expected immediately, yesterday. And that's not easy to achieve when there are so many broken parts. Despite it all looking shiny and brand new and glamorous on the surface, we all know that there are problems at PSG. I'm not surprised that clubs are starting to show an interest in Arteta, though, because he has shown that he can ride through a wave of difficulty, that he can rebuild a team and get it to a point where it's competitive again. And everybody knows that the Premier League is the most difficult league in the world. Everybody knows that in order to finish in the top 4 in the Premier League, you've got to be very, very strong. And that if you finished 4th in the Premier League, you'd probably have a good chance of going out and winning a lot of the other European leagues. Not all of them, but, you'd feel like if you were to transfer that form or that team to La Liga, let's say, that they'd be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. And the same in Italy. So people have a respect for the Premier League, and there's a respect that comes with finishing 4th in the Premier League that is greater than what you'd get if you finished fourth in La Liga, for example, just because of how notoriously difficult this league is, how much finance is involved in the entire competition, and how that means that the playing field is a lot more level than it is in other countries. So I'm not surprised that Mikel is being looked at. I'm not surprised that he's making headlines, and I'm not surprised that people will be interested in him. But if this is the man Arsenal believe is the guy to take us forward, and right now I believe he is, then you've got to make him feel wanted, loved, continue to give him the control that he wants, the finance he wants, and grow with him. Because if the board and the club don't match the manager's ambition as he continues to develop. Remember, he's very fresh. He's very new. He's still at a very early stage in his career. But if he gets to the point in his career where he feels like he's done the maximum that he can do with what's available to him, and Arsenal are not matching that, and Arsenal are not keeping up with that, then he will walk. Because while I say that this is a job he's got an emotional attachment to and he feels connected to, I also look at Mikel Arteta and I see someone who maybe didn't show the same burning desire as a player, or maybe I just missed it, but certainly as a manager wants to win and wants to achieve great things. So, yeah, that's my view on the whole Mikel Arteta thing. I don't think PSG would be at the top of his desire list. But of course, just to hear that clubs of that kind of standing right now are looking at him and considering him should give us encouragement that things are going in the right direction here at our club. Okay, let's take some of your questions and thoughts from the live chat. Don't forget to hit that like button if you haven't done so already. Let's try and get to 100 likes ASAP. There's certainly more than enough of you watching to make that happen. So yeah, please do get involved in the chat box. Let me hear from you. What do you think about the whole Mikel Arteta contract discussion? Is it too soon to offer Mikel Arteta a new contract? Has he done enough yet to warrant being offered the new contract? You guys tell me. I've seen the poll results, but I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your thoughts, and we'll pick up as many of those as we possibly can. Also, if you've got any questions that you want to throw in the chat, start getting them in there now, and we will pick them up for the last sort of 15 or so minutes of the show. Just before we move into the chat box, though, I just want to quickly remind you that we are currently partnered up with the good people over at Football Prizes. If you want a chance to win this Dennis Bergkamp signed and framed Arsenal shirt, all you have to do is visit the link in the description, head over to the Football Prizes website, purchase your ticket for just £3.95. It is a draw. There are 99 tickets available, and the competition ends this coming Thursday at 7:30 p.m. So if you want to be in with a shout of winning this wonderful prize, then this is what you need to do. Head over to Football Prizes, click on the link in the description, purchase your ticket for your opportunity to win a Dennis Bergkamp signed and framed Arsenal shirt. I'll tell you what, that's something I am definitely interested in. Get over there, check them out. Also, if you haven't subscribed to the Chronicles of a Gooner channel, what are you doing? Make sure you are subscribed. Help us on our path towards 20,000 subscribers here on YouTube. And if you're listening to us via the audio platforms, particularly Apple Podcasts, please leave us a review, because those reviews are key. They really, really do help. And we've been slacking on that a little bit. I don't talk about it enough as I should, as much as I should have, sorry. And we're a little bit behind where we should be in terms of the number of listens that we get, the number of people subscribed that we have, and then the number of reviews. That the drop off is quite significant. So if you could help us out in that sense, I'd be very, very grateful. Okay, let's go over to the live chat. Sam doesn't think that there's any credence to the PSG talk. He says PSG want to win the Champions League, so they're not going to appoint a manager who's never coached in the Champions League. No way will he go there. Social says, I think he likes the idea of being here long term. Yeah, look, as I said a little bit earlier on, the fact that he's at a club that has the potential to succeed means that he won't be in a rush to jump ship. Like, it's not like he's, with all due respect, managing Burnley, where he knows that the ceiling is kind of here and there's nowhere further to go. Arsenal are a huge football club. And if he does really feel like KSE are also in on this to win and take the club forward as well, then there's no reason why he would want to jump ship so soon. As I keep saying, he's very young. He's got plenty of time to go on and manage different clubs. But for the time being, I think he's happy here, and I think he's enjoying the fact that this is very much his project. Interesting question, this from Deflected Mind. He says, "Hi, Harry, are we overworking our youngsters?" So when I look at footballers, I break them down into 3 categories. Okay, so for me, you've got your players up to 20 years old, who for me need to be blooded in slowly, need to be brought up to speed physically, because you're playing under 18s, under 23s football. It isn't the same. The physical level and the intensity with which the Premier League is played at takes some getting used to. So up to like 20 years old, I think that you need to be blooded in slowly. Once you hit that point of 21, you should be ready to perform. You know, the age at which players are now making the breakthrough is younger than it's ever been. You know, I remember when I was growing up, we used to look at players at 23, 24 and say, well, he's still got plenty of time. Let's not rush him. And now we say that with 18-year-olds and 20-year-olds. But when a player gets to 21, 22, there's no reason in my mind now why they shouldn't be, you know, able to play week in, week out and be a key component in your team. I think that the senior players have a role to play in that. So my first category is up to 20 years old. Then you've got 20 to kind of 28, which should be, for me now, you know, when you're at your physical peak. Maybe once you get to your late 20s, early 30s, then that drops a little bit. And with the game becoming more and more physically demanding, I think all these age brackets that I'm kind of naming are shifting quite a bit. So I've gone around the houses a little bit, but are we overworking our youngsters? At the moment, I don't think so, because we're not playing in a variety of competitions. If we were playing them in every single competition, every single game, every single week, then I'd be worried about that. I do look at some of them and feel like they do look at times a little bit burnt out. One, to me, that has shown signs of looking just a touch tired and a touch leggy towards the back end of games is Bukayo Saka. But he's also so important to the way that we play and so important to this team that there's understandably a reluctance to just pull him out all the time. So I think there's a risk of that, and it's something we need to be mindful of and keep an eye on. But I don't think we've reached that point just yet where we're burning out players or should be particularly worried. Let's see. What else have we got? Ray says that for the first time in years, the fans are getting very comfortable because of the work Arteta has done at Emirates. For me, it can be as simple as the fact that I'm just enjoying watching my team play again. And I didn't really enjoy my team under Unai Emery. I really didn't. I didn't enjoy it at the start of Mikel Arteta's tenure either. When you take out the FA Cup that we won, aside from that, it's been pretty dull. It's been pretty dire. The first year and a half, or the first year, was a struggle, but we were going through that transition. So while I wasn't enjoying it and while I wasn't happy with it, I was understanding of the fact that this kind of was something we needed to go through before we could come out on the other side. I feel like we have come out on the other side. I feel like this team is very lovable. It's very relatable. And because of all of those things, I feel invested and I'm enjoying the football as well. So yeah, it's good, and it's great to be at the Emirates Stadium nowadays, enjoying Arsenal moving in the right direction. Asson says just the fact that he's changed the culture of the club from what it used to be and seeing the path that we're heading means he deserves a new contract. I agree with that. Social says happy for Arteta to have the contract. The manager and the board all seem to be rowing in the same direction. Plenty of progress made with the turnaround of playing staff. Afsar says Arteta is nowhere near as good a manager as Klopp, and I would wait till the end of the season to decide if Arteta is a new manager. But Afsar, nobody's comparing him to Jurgen Klopp. Like, the only comparison that you can make between Mikel Arteta and Jurgen Klopp is that they both have a very clear idea of how football should be played and how the environment should look behind the scenes. Mikel Arteta's got a long way to go before we can talk about him in the same class as Jurgen Klopp. But Jurgen Klopp was also afforded time at the beginning of his Liverpool tenure and afforded autonomy, i.e. control, to do things the way he wanted to do them. And now Liverpool are benefiting from that. And he's built something that's seen them be at the very pinnacle of football and European football for, what, 4 years now? That didn't just happen overnight. That's because Jurgen Klopp was given time. And so when people talk about Klopp and Arteta in the same kind of conversation, it's not to say that Jurgen Klopp is at Mikel Arteta's level or that Mikel Arteta is at Jurgen Klopp's. There is clearly a disparity between the two. There is clearly so much more that Mikel needs to achieve before we can talk about him at that level. But what we're saying is that similarly to Jurgen Klopp, Mikel Arteta came in and didn't convince everybody right from the start. Jurgen Klopp had a history as well. He'd won a Bundesliga with Borussia Dortmund, which got people on side and maybe meant that people went, even when it wasn't going great at the beginning, okay, we know he can do it, so let's just back off and allow this to happen and allow this to develop. It bought him time. His reputation bought him time. In Arteta's case, we'd moved on Arsene Wenger, who we all agree came to the end of his tenure, despite having done wonderful things for the football club and establishing himself, for me, as probably Arsenal's greatest manager ever. You know, we all accepted that he had to move on. He moved on. We then went to appoint someone else, and we got it so horribly bloody wrong. So you can understand why when Mikel Arteta came in, people went, not sure about this. If Unai Emery couldn't do it, Unai Emery with a series of Europa League sort of winners' medals sitting on his mantelpiece, if he couldn't do it, if he couldn't turn this around, how is Mikel Arteta going to turn it around? I understand that. I was like that. When the appointment was made, if you go back to one of the videos and episodes that I put out when the appointment was made, I was saying that this was a massive risk and that I'd have probably preferred Arsenal to go for Carlo Ancelotti. Mikel Arteta's first press conference, which a lot of people have been referencing of late, went some way in winning me over. But it was just words at that point. He needed to actually put that into practice. He needed to actually make that happen. And now, a couple of years down the line, we are seeing that a lot of the things he said in that press conference, he's been working towards and he now has put in place. So the comparison or the similarity is that both of these guys, in order to get to the level that they need to be, because of the fact that neither Liverpool nor Arsenal have the spending power of a Manchester United, a Manchester City, or a Chelsea, the way to get there is to give somebody time to make sure that things are running perfectly, that you only have players that are invested, that you only have players who fit the system, that you only have players who are willing to be part of the culture, which goes some way in bridging the gap between the talent that we have at our club and the talent that they have at some of the other clubs. So I get why people are saying that we should wait till the end of the season. I think that an announcement, listen, if Arsenal behind the scenes want to give Mikel Arteta the contract tomorrow, do it. I wouldn't be against it. I think I've seen enough now to suggest that he's taking us in the right direction. Do it. But just hold fire on the announcement just to make sure that you don't have to deal with those dissenting voices at a really key part of our season and a really crucial moment in our season. That would be the way I would handle it and I would play it. Gautam says, Arteta's impact has been positive so far. I don't see why we shouldn't extend his stay. People rave about Poch, though the only achievement for him was to finish above Arsenal. Axel says, for me, there's no discussion. Arteta has not only involved the team, but has also brought a synergy to the team, club, and fan base. We're more unified now, and no other manager would understand. Steve Stone says, I'm not against Mikel Arteta having a new contract. I would just prefer that we wait till the summer. Kim B shares that opinion. He says, I would rather wait for the summer, but keeping in mind how much easier it is to end a contract with a manager compared to a player, I would give him a new contract. Jid F32 says, why is it that when it comes to Arteta, there is this apprehension about him based on experience? Yet no one is saying the same about Xavi, who's managing a bigger squad coming from Qatar. Yeah, I think there was some apprehension around Xavi, but I think that the fact that Xavi was a legend at Barcelona and will go down as one of the greatest midfielders of all time has helped him in that sense. It kind of covers up a lot of his shortcomings, perhaps, as a manager, in the way that it doesn't for Mikel Arteta. You know, let's be honest. Was Mikel Arteta a great midfielder for Arsenal? No. He was a good one who I thought at times looked very good, was always very tidy and comfortable on the ball, but got exposed in that defensive midfield position time and time again. And sometimes players surprise you. Sometimes players make that transition from playing into coaching and catch everybody out. You look at them and you go, as a player, well, I'm not sure that this guy's got that winning mentality, got what it takes necessarily to be a coach. Maybe Mikel Arteta's calling was to be a coach, because he looks far more competent, far stronger in the dugout than he did in the center of midfield for me. That's not to say he was a bad player, but you know, he doesn't have that kind of aura about him that a Xavi does. And that's probably why you don't hear so much or didn't hear as much apprehension around Xavi's appointment at Barcelona. We all follow the Arsenal says, does Arteta have a ceiling though? That is where some people have concern. Does he have the ability to manage players with egos? Does he know how to change it up well enough to change the game? All valid questions. All valid questions indeed. But to say that he has a ceiling would suggest that he can't improve and he can't develop. And I think that's unfair. I think that somebody like Mikel Arteta is certainly not the finished article at this point in his managerial career. But why can't he get better? Just like we look at Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Emile Smith-Rowe, Ramsdale, Ben White. We look at them and we purr over what they are today to a degree, but more so probably what they could go on to be. So why can't the same be said of the manager? I think the whole egos thing, I think there are two types of egos, right? There's ego in terms of belief in yourself. And I think you need that. And I think every single footballer that has got to the level that we're talking about, that is playing for Arsenal currently, has a level of belief in what they do and a bit of an ego. But there's damaging egos, and there's egos that are based on sort of self-righteousness and arrogance. There's ego can roll over into arrogance quite easily, and I think that Mikel Arteta is not wrong to want to keep those types of characters away. You know, Liverpool, when Jurgen Klopp signed the players that he signed, that have since gone on to be phenomenal and taken them up to the level that they are today, would you say any of them had an ego? Mo Salah had been rejected by Chelsea, had gone to Italy and done quite well, but there were lots of reservations about him coming back to the Premier League and whether he'd be good enough. And look at him now. Sadio Mane came from Southampton. Virgil van Dijk came from Southampton. The ego wasn't there at the time. It doesn't mean they can't then go on to be confident in their own ability, have a bit of ego, but also massively successful. We're just looking for players at different stages in their careers. We're not looking for the Cristiano Ronaldos of the world and the Lionel Messis of the world. We're looking for the players that are just, because of the fact that we can't spend hundreds of millions of pounds on single players, we're looking for players that are just in that sweet spot. Players that are simmering away, just about to bubble. That's what we're looking for. And at this moment in time, I think he's the right man for that. Let's take a couple more of your questions and a couple more of your thoughts. Obradek says that the title should be Arteta confident Arsenal will extend his contract. As of right now, Arteta has not achieved anything. Agreed. He's still got plenty of work to do. Mickey says, in Arteta, we trust he deserves the chance to continue the task of rebuilding the team, of which he's been doing a very good job so far. What else have we got? As Afsar says, smash the likes. Yes, please do. You know what? Let's check in. We're still not hit 100 likes. Come on, guys. Let's hit the 100 likes mark. There's nearly 300 of you watching, so there's plenty of people in the chat. Let's hit that like button. Let's make sure that we are subscribed to the channel as well. Deepak says, people blame the signing of Ramsdale, Ben White and Odegaard over Maddison. Now as fans, we've started to accept them. So let's start believing the manager as well. He's doing his thing. Let's do ours. Do you know what, Deepak? You're absolutely spot on. And I wrote a piece on 90min.com, which you can find on the website. If you go onto the website, click on Arsenal, you'll find it there. Or if you go on my Twitter profile and you click on that link to the pieces that I've written, which is in my bio, you'll see it there. I talked about how the decision to sign Odegaard over Maddison was the right one, because Odegaard has a far bigger influence over our team. You know, maybe he doesn't score as many goals, maybe he doesn't provide as many assists. That's partly because he's not playing in the Europa crappy Conference League. But it's sometimes we just need to, as fans, go, well, our opinion is this, and it's fine to have an opinion, but let's see how it plays out. Let's see where this goes. Let's see how things develop and how things progress. And I don't think we're very good at doing that. I think we're very quick to jump on decisions, be outraged by them. You know, I was one of the people that looked at Aaron Ramsdale and went, £25 million when we need a midfielder. Is this really the priority? I said the same about Ben White, like, good player. And I'd covered Leeds a little bit during my time at Snack Media. So I looked at Leeds and I went, yeah, he's a good player. I covered the season that Leeds got promoted, in which Ben White was at the heart of everything they did. And I said, yeah, good player that I like, player that I understand why people are circling around him. But £50 million, not sure if that was the right money. And in the end, we paid the money, and I think it's been a good signing. So, yeah, sometimes we can have an opinion, but we shouldn't be kind of tied to those opinions forever. You should be able to try, or you should be able to learn, to see, to understand, and then move away from your original opinion. And I think sometimes as fans, we're very bad at doing that. And then we get to the point where, well, we don't want to be proved wrong, particularly for podcasters and YouTubers and people that do this kind of work. If they go really big on a player one way or the other, i.e., yes, he's good, or yes, he's not good, they're very reluctant in some cases to move away from that initial view. And I think that's wrong. I'm quite happy to sit here and say that I was wrong about Ramsdale, that I was wrong about Ben White and his valuation. I was right about Odegaard. I was right about Unai Emery. I'm hoping that come the end of the season, I'll be right about Mikel Arteta as well. But just because you get some things right, it doesn't mean that you have to pretend that you didn't get anything wrong. We all get things wrong. But it's about owning up when you get it wrong, understanding that you got it wrong, understanding why, maybe looking back at what you missed, and then developing your knowledge and understanding of the game, and hopefully getting more things right moving forward. It's as simple as that. Okay, I'm going to take one more comment from Social DRG. Who is your captain for next season, Harry? I think it's going to be Kieran Tierney. I think that Mikel Arteta is going to pick Kieran Tierney, just based on the fact that when Lacazette goes off the pitch now, he's the guy that he passes the armband to. And I can't really see him in the summer, if Lacazette does leave the club, going, well, you were the next in line, but now you're not, and XYZ is. So I'd imagine that Kieran Tierney will probably be given the armband next season. But for me personally, I'd like to see it go to Martin Odegaard. I really would. I think he's so important to the way we play. I think he's such a good ambassador for the club. He speaks well. He communicates well, which I think is important when you're a captain. Also leads by example on the pitch. That's not to say that Kieran Tierney doesn't and that some of the others don't. But for me, Odegaard is just performing at a really high level. And he's a captain on the international stage. And he just seems to have a lot of the leadership qualities that nowadays are very valid. In the past, it was, let me go around beating my chest, shouting at people, being scary, aggressive. That worked in years gone by. It doesn't really work now, or the number of captains of that mold and ilk are becoming fewer and fewer, and that's for a reason. So I think that Martin Odegaard would be my captain next season. but I think it will probably be Kieran Tierney. Okay, we're going to leave it there. Don't forget to join me a little bit later on the channel from 5 p.m. live. We will be looking ahead to that big match at Emirates Stadium tomorrow night. Arsenal take on Liverpool as we continue our push towards the top four. Liverpool will have smelt blood having watched Manchester City drop some points at Crystal Palace last night. So it's a big game for both sides. One of the biggest games of the season. It really is shaping up that way. We'll be bringing you a full preview of that game live right here on the channel at 5 p.m. UK time today. And of course, we will be releasing that in podcast format this evening for you guys that listen via the audio to download and enjoy ahead of that fixture. I'll be back very soon then. Until next time, take care of yourselves and stay safe. All the best. Goodbye.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner, the Arsenal podcast.
I'm Martin Tyler, and you're listening to Harry Symeou.